Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. All right. Hi, everybody. How are you? Hello. We are recording tonight, and we're Zooming with an audience as well of our members. So we have the microphone, and just a quick reminder. So the audience online can't hear you unless you talk into the microphone. So, so we'll be passing this around for questions. But just some quick logistics. Has everybody signed in? Okay, awesome. Okay, everybody has a raffle ticket or door prize ticket? No? Okay. If you need one, just raise your hand and Judy will make sure make sure you got one. Bathrooms are through this door to the left and then to the right into the first doorway and then kind of down around the cafe and kind of against to the left. So feel free to get up anytime. And let's see, we're going to run probably until 8 or 8:30 tonight. What? Oh, and yes, I have to, Bill always has to remind me of this. Please, please, please silence your phones. Don't take any calls while you're here in the meeting. It's just really disruptive. So we ask you to make sure your phones are on silent. But welcome to Big Valley Beekeepers Guild. How many of you are here for the first time? Excellent. Yay. All right. But you look familiar. That's what's funny. Okay. Oh, you have. Okay. Not to this building. Oh, okay, got it. So we're welcome. Please make sure to let us know how you heard about the meetings because that's always a great thing. And I want to introduce our board members that are here tonight. We have Bill Burdick, who's in the teal type of greenish shirt. We have myself, Cherie, and we have Judy here as well. And we also have Mark, who couldn't be with us tonight, but I think he's on Zoom. And we're so glad that you guys are all here. We have a great topic planned. So let's see. How come always every time it does this? Hold on. It's Zoom. Zoom always does this funny thing here. Hold on. Where's my cursor? There we go. All right, now it works. So just some quick updates before we get started on our topic. Although it would help if my little bar was up here. There we go. I'm just going to hide it, I think, right down here for now. All right. So we do have T-shirts, hats, and patches, but we don't have them here with us tonight. So we will have them next month. But we would love to have, we also have pins and all these great things for Big Valley Beekeepers Guild swag. So let us know if you're interested in that. We also, goodness, why is my clicker? This was the same clicker that was giving me issues before. Let me try this again. Oop, of course it doesn't help if my back comes off.
It can be a clicker for you if you
Oh
want.
no, it's totally good.
Human clicker.
Yes. All right. Well, forget that. I'm just going to go. I'm going to be the human clicker myself. Can you guys hear me? You guys can all hear me, huh? Okay. So, oh, here we go. There we go. So news and announcements. So those of you who are in our beginning beekeeping class, we are doing our field day on April 26th. It is only for those beginning beekeepers that attended the class or enrolled in it. But that's when we're going to have our field day. And we will be looking for some helpers. So if you're interested in volunteering that day, let us know. We'll need help probably for the full morning, and which is probably about 3 or 4 hours. But we have our field day scheduled for that date at Jesse's Grove in our educational apiary. May 8th is going to be our next monthly meeting, and that is when we have guest speaker Eric Oliver coming to speak with us all about installing nukes and raising your nukes for the first year. He is bringing the nukes that for people that have ordered them, pre-ordered with them that night. So we will have them available for distribution, but only at dusk once it gets a little bit dark. And that's pretty important to make sure you have all your bees in your box. So, so if you, so that is also our nuke distribution night. But again, we won't be able to release them before the meeting. It'll only happen after the meeting, but we'll do that. June 14th is the Flower Festival at Jesse's Grove. We actually have a table. We're going to be talking to people and hopefully getting them interested in beekeeping. So if it's something that you'd be interested in helping us with, we'd love to have a few people come during the day to help us with the different shifts. and talking about beekeeping or becoming a beekeeper and what Big Valley Beekeepers Guild does. We also have our educational hives. Again, out at Jesse's Grove Winery, we will start opening them up a couple of times a month. This is a huge member benefit because you actually get hands-on experience with live bees, and then you can take it back and use it with your own colonies in your own hives. So we, though, we don't want to just be out there ourselves. We want people to come out there with us and actually enjoy the hives and learn from that experience of having this live, working with the live hives and the live bees. So watch for that. We usually post it on our private Facebook group, but we might start emailing our members as well just to let them know. But you do have to be a current paid member of the guild. And that means that you're paid up for 2025, and every year our memberships expire on December 31st, just in case you're wondering.
Oh, you guys do it the right way.
I know. So there we go. So nuke orders, we have sold out. So if you come on May 8th wanting to take one home and you haven't pre-ordered, you aren't on the list, I'm so sorry, but they are sold out. You'll have to find someone else to get a nuke from. But the pickup will be at that May 8th meeting. And then we want to talk for a minute just about volunteers. So Judy, myself, Bill, Mark, many others actually volunteer for us on a regular basis, which is great. But we need to be able to have a succession plan, and we need to have other people step up as well, being willing to give of their time and their energy and their efforts. There are so many different ways that we could use volunteers. There was a volunteer sheet, I think, up here on one of the tables, but we may have it up there as well. Definitely sign up or talk to Judy or Bill or myself about volunteering, and we'll figure out a way to get you involved. So we would love to have your help. And if you are willing after the meeting, we'd love your help just helping making sure the room's all set before we go. All right. BS, beekeeper poll. So we sent out and we posted a cool beekeeper poll. And the reason we wanted to do this was because we wanted to find out where people's experience are in our area. Were they brand new beekeepers? Were they seasoned beekeepers? So the poll is still live. We'd like to get as many submissions as we can. And so this is the QR code. If you scan that with your phone, you can go in and actually go to the Google Doc and then actually take the survey. So it'll still be open for another week or two, but please give your input. We would love to hear it. Everybody got that? Okay, great. So I am going to introduce our guest speaker, and then we're going to switch over. So many of you might have met Keith Scott at the intermediate beekeeping class. He was one of our presenters. He has been beekeeping for, gosh, how long, Keith?
16 years.
16 years. It's kind of crazy how that happens. He's currently the treasurer for the El Dorado Beekeepers, and he loves to talk about and share his beekeeping journey with others. He actually started as a hobbyist, and now how many hives do you keep? I know it's up there on the board, but
yeah, currently I've got 29.
29 hives that he keeps.
Keep it right around 30.
He's going to try to keep it right around 30, but we all know how that goes this time of year. So we are so grateful to have him here. He spoke on a slightly similar topic. He talked about queen rearing during our intermediate class, but we thought it would be great to have him. He made the drive all the way down from Folsom this evening, so thank you so much for making that trip. But he's going to talk to us all about balancing your hives. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Mr. Keith Scott.
Yeah, is this thing live? Or?
It is. It should
all right.
be. I'm going to make sure people.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So we have until 7:30? 7? Okay. Perfect. So no rush. Yeah, it always ends up being a rush. I'm just going to apologize if you hear me talking fast. It's probably because I just want to like shotgun some information to you really quickly at the end there. Yeah, so I've been beekeeping for about 16 years. My joke, and a lot of truth to it, is that the first 3 years I was more of a bee killer than or a bee haver than a beekeeper. It took me about 3 years to figure out how to raise them properly and feed them, and then also manage the queens and the colony growth, and not let Varroa get to them, right? So taking care of Varroa was my number one thing that I started focusing in on that really kind of made the biggest difference for me. Once I started really getting that IPM under control, it made a big difference. That's my plug for Varroa management. That's the last time I'll talk about it. Most important stuff first, right? Okay, so what I really want to talk about is how to manage your colonies when they're at this time of year, and probably even a little sooner than now. You've got a problem where you've got a lot of brood and a lot of swarm tendencies. So swarm tendencies will occur when they're too full. Typically, if they're full of brood, that's one thing that everybody thinks of, right? But you don't think of food so much. There's always a chance that when there's a lot of pollen and a lot of nectar coming in and you have a strong workforce, they're going to plug out the brood nest with a lot of food. And then once that happens, the queen has no place to lay. And that's really what the stimulating factor is, in my opinion, that isn't talked about enough. It's the idea of the queen runs out of places to lay. So how do you manage that? If you don't have a lot of extra comb around sitting in boxes in your basement because you're a crazy person, how do you manage making enough comb and getting the bees enough space that the queen doesn't feel like she's running out? Um, there are a few things. I'll just mention a couple really quickly. One is you can spin a couple of frames out and give her space. You know, put a couple of blanks in, give her space. We'll talk about when to do some of those things and how to do it a little bit more. But those are kind of the quick things. You got to give her room to lay in to kind of stop some of that swarming tendencies. If you just put in blank, empty frames like this with just foundation on them, no drawn comb, she still has no place to lay, right? So she can have a ton of room in here, but no place to lay. So that's the other problem. I think that's something that I had to learn the hard way. I'm like, I gave her all the space in the world. Why did they still leave? You know, uh, they don't love me. Yeah. So the biggest thing is the right kind of space, places for her to lay. What I normally see this time of year in a lot of colonies is they'll kind of look like this, where blue is brood, and you'll have, 8 frames in a 10-frame setup full of brood and or food, a combination of those things, right? We've all seen that kind of rainbow effect where the honey is around the outside and pollen is kind of around the outside and the brood is ideally in the center of the frame, right? That can kind of get closed down too, and they can run out of space. So if you have something like this, what do you do? You know, one of the things you can do is you can take an outer frame. I brought all my empties because everything else gets super sticky and messy. But imagine this is filled with drawn comb, and there's not a whole lot going on in here. Maybe it's empty. Ideally, it's empty. There's nothing going on. What I would do is I would just make a space in, like say a month ago or a few weeks ago, and I'd put it right in the middle. And now at a setup where you've got 4 on each side of that 8-frame setup that are kind of like that, that are still plugged out, but she's got a little bit more room. This is kind of nice if you don't have any other boxes to put them in to do something like that. However, it's still not going to give them enough, because when you think about how long does it take for a queen or for an egg to hatch and then become a worker, right? So it takes 3.5 to 4 days for an egg to, from the time that it's laid to actually be hatched. And then after that, it takes what, how long? Does anybody know? Yeah, yeah, the bee math. Can you go to that slide? So for a regular bee, I want to say it's a couple weeks, but basically within a very short period of time, especially if they're all capped brood, they're going to emerge, right? So that's what you're potentially trying to watch out for, is that overrunning of population in the area. I think it's like slide 5 or, yeah, there it is. This is for queens. It changes, the math changes a little bit for regular bees, but the bee math's out there. It's all over the place. It's funny because it's one of those things I've been doing forever, and I still forget it. I have to reference it. I don't know why the bee math, the timing doesn't stick in my head permanently, but it's just one of those things. It's kind of like names. If Tony didn't have his name tag on, I'd see him on the street and be like, "Hey, you, how's it going there, guy?" Just awful. Okay, so what you really want to do, if you can, when you're all plugged out, is you want to have a little bit of extra space. Now, this works best, in my opinion, if you've got a queen excluder. Who here uses queen excluders? Okay. I'm going to try to convince the rest of you that queen excluders are not the devil and that they will not stop you from making honey, that they're okay. Now, that's based on a little bit of bee math. I'm going to convince you first. I'm going to my sales pitch, if you will. Uh, how many eggs does a queen lay on the high end every day? Anybody know? About 2,000. About 2,000 on the high end is kind of the thing. How many cells are in one of these? Anybody know? It's like It's like 7,000 on the high end, I think, on both sides if it's all open. Don't quote me on it. It's a lot. But it takes them about, I want to say, when you think about the number of cells that are going to be kind of clogged out for food and stuff, it might take her 3-4 days to go through one frame, right? And lay it out and have stuff set up if she sticks to that one frame. And how many frames do you have in a 10? When you start looking at the how many frames, how many cells do you have in a 10? When you start doing the B math, sorry, when you start doing the B math for the number of cells available in a 10 frame setup, it makes sense. When you go to 8 frame, it changes things, right? So I do like the 10 frames just for how the numbers work out. I can put a queen excluder on, and I can know if she's got 2 to 3 frames or preferably 4 to lay on and for them to store food in, that they're going to be fine for at least a week to 2 weeks, right? And then you got to check on them again, make sure that they're not running out of space again. Okay, so queen excluder also makes a big difference, a little bit more sales pitch. I only have 10 frames to go through now, right? 10 frames to go through versus 20 frames to find that queen. And I also know that the queen's down here. If I did my stuff right, she's down here. So now I can do the next manipulation for trying to stop the bees from swarming too much or from swarming at all, if I'm lucky. I can add another super on with the queen excluder. And when I add that other super, it gives them a ton of space. Now, if I just add another super, well, sign language, respect. If I just add another super, even if it has a ton of space, and they're all clogged out down here, and she can't move up here, and she has no place to lay, then the problem is she's still not going to have any place to lay, right? They're still going to have that swarm tendency. And this is kind of one of the big problems that I had to figure out. How do you get past that swarm tendency? It's not just about removing the queen cells, it's about making that space. I'm just going to keep driving that point home all day, so bear with me. So what you do is you want to take your queen excluder off, obviously, so you can do some manipulations. You want to take a couple of frames and swap them out, preferably 3 brood frames. I like to have 2 or 3 brood frames. So I'm going to take the blue broods, I'm going to put them up top here, and I'm going to put them right in the center. Now, if the rest of this stuff is set up right, I'll also do down below one empty in between the rest of these, and 2. Now, let's assume not all of these are drawn out. That's okay. One of these can be, or 2 of these can be empties that they can then fill out. You want to give them some sugar water if that's what you're trying to do. Get them to draw some comb. Give them some sugar water and they'll draw out some of that comb, especially if they're in the population boom time. February, March is perfect for getting them to start kind of ramping up on that stuff a little bit. I prefer March if I'm not trying to get like things buffed up for too much further purposes. But really what we're talking about is making that brood space again. So we got the brood space down below, and now we've got the brood separated up above. If we add that queen excluder back on, she's still down here because we checked these 3 frames, right? And made sure she's on here. Now, if you don't feel confident that she's not on these 3 frames or your eyes aren't that good, mine are starting to go. I'm 50, and they started going here last year or so. And so sometimes I'll miss eggs and small things. I can still spot my queen because I mark them. I always mark my queens. and it just makes my life a lot easier. But if I wasn't confident that I could mark my queens or that I could find her, if I wasn't sure, if I was rushing, right, I would shake all the bees off of this frame, as many as I could, if not all of them. Just shake them. You shake them. Bob Binney has a saying: shake them vigorously, not violently. I like that. I really like that. So you kind of shake, 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 right? And then they'll drop down in here. And the queen, if she's on there, she'll drop down as well. Do that to all 3 frames or whatever you bring up top, preferably 3. And then add your queen excluder back on, and then add your top back on. Now what'll happen is, in the next few hours, let's say you do this at noon, in the next, like by 1, 2, 3 o'clock at the latest, all the bees will equalize. And up here will be the nurse bees taking care of the brood that's on these 3 frames. So it's really kind of nice because they'll work through that queen excluder, and then they'll start filling out this space. Now, if this is empty up top, if all you have is just foundation, that's when, if I'm doing a too deep configuration like this, for whatever reason, I would add some sugar water on top, or I'd add a 2-frame sugar water feeder inside. Put a gallon feeder in here or larger, and let them pull that out. I even use that with swarms, and swarms will make just a ton of wax for me. Swarms are like wax production machines. They're great. I love them. So if I catch a swarm, I don't feel like, oh, that was something I did wrong. Yeah, technically it's something I did wrong. But, or something I could have improved on, right? Maybe an observation I didn't make. But at the same time, I know that I can use them to make wax, which is great. How many of you are first-year beekeepers? Yeah? It was a reluctant, oh, not even there yet. Okay. Oh, that's a great question. How many people don't have bees yet? Oh, okay, okay, okay. So this is kind of second-year technique stuff. This is advanced. You can go home now. No. um, no. So this is all good to know, because there is a time, like if you're feeding your bees, especially in the summer dearth or whatever, and they're still producing a lot of brood. If you're giving them sugar and pollen patties, they could potentially be raising a lot of brood, and they could get plugged out. So this is still good to know, even as a first-year beekeeper. But typically, this is a second-year issue or beyond. Okay, so now we've got them on here. There's a top on here, which you can't see. It's invisible because I was too lazy to bring it. And you've got a sugar water feeder on top or inside. Well, how long do you let that sit? Timing, right? I usually check on my bees like once a week or every 10 days if I have to. Wait that long. Just when I'm doing this kind of manipulation. Why? Anybody got any guesses? Cells. Yeah. Yeah, those queen cells. You're going for it. He beat you to it. Yeah. So, and you'll see them, after a few days, but, that 7 to 10 day mark is kind of your sweet spot. So if a queen cell gets developed in here, now I've got an option. I can take this off. I can move it aside. I can create a new box, a new hive out of it, right? A new colony setup. I can pinch off those queen cells and make sure that they stay pretty mellow and chill. And now I've got to go back through, down here. If I see queen cells up top, I've got to go through the bottom again and make sure that there aren't any queen cells being reared down there. There's a trick to this that I learned a while back. Actually, I learned it from Cayman Reynolds, of all places. He was working one of his yards on one of his videos, and I hadn't used it before, and I was like, why didn't I ever use that? Well, from the back side, imagine this is the back, not the front. You just crack open your hive, you pop it open. I call it clamshelling it. I don't know what he called it. And then you look underneath and you see if you can see those queen cells. This is a number of years ago that I saw that, and I've found that extremely useful, extremely useful. I highly recommend doing a peek like that, even on the top boxes, just to see if you can see those queen cells and see if they're dry or if they're wet. Okay, what else? Oh man, we're doing great for time. I got stuff. Okay, so once you've got them separated into 2 different colonies, say, if this colony now has space and the queen's doing okay, you're fine. Everything's fine, right? But let's say now they've plugged it back up again and you want to do something else, but you don't want to have a million colonies, right? I mean, so your colony number is probably 1 or 2 for your first year of beekeeping, right? If once you start getting into beekeeping, yeah, 1 or 2, yeah. right? How many people want more than 2 hives? Okay. How many people want more than 5 hives? Okay. How many hives do you have right now, Tony?
Well, 2 weeks ago, we had 6. We currently, I'll know in about 5 days, we're somewhere between 10 and 12 right now. I have enough equipment, and that's the other thing, when you come into spring, you got to have the equipment to be able to expand.
Yeah, that's a good
So,
point.
yeah, I've got enough equipment to be able to go up to about 15 colonies and 20 nukes.
Okay.
And so I'm somewhere between 10 and 12 right now because I've been dealing with capped swarm cells over the last couple weeks.
Right.
And so we had the equipment, and my wife and I just, well, we did 7 splits.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what you
So-
beekeep all year to get to. This is the fun
Yeah,
part.
Yeah, this is the fun part for sure. Yeah, so other than Crazy Tony and Crazy Keith, anybody else want to have more than 5 colonies or 5 or more? Okay. All right. You don't have a name tag, so I'll never remember your name.
Bill.
Bill. Oh, that's easy. Yeah, so the idea is if you don't want to have a bunch of colonies and you've got those swarm cells, you can pinch them off. If you pinch them off and you just have, let's say this is entirely blown out. I'm going to sidetrack and I'll come back, I promise. And you don't want to have more than just 10 frame down here of your bees. I would take all the frames of brood. I would take all the frames, especially your first year, and I would shake off the bees. Look for queen cells all over, right? And then set them aside. Make a little space. Shake out your frames. Get a frame or two at least out. Check everything. Make sure it's cool. And then from here, you can just kind of keep shaking down. Now, when you do this, I find it's best to have a separate box set aside just to put your empties in, just so they don't flop about all over the place. And if there are bees on here and you lean them against the side, sometimes they'll climb up and over the edge, which isn't that big of a deal, but you just have to be a little bit more careful when you put your tops back on. Same thing, shake it out, look all over. Do that for all 10 frames. Why? Because you don't want to miss a queen cell. You miss one queen cell, you got a swarm. So the best way to do that is to check all your frames very thoroughly, and shaking is really one of the best ways to do it. Now, if you can avoid shaking your queen, great. If you shake her, she's probably going to be fine, as long as you don't do it violently. Okay, so now you've got the setup. You want to only have one. What will happen is over the series of a week or two, most of the eggs will have hatched. All the eggs will have hatched, and they'll have sealed all the brood, and they'll be in that stage where you know what is brood and what is food, right? And now you can do either you can do a recombine. You can take these frames. This is what I've done in the past. It works out okay. As long as you're not plugging this up too much, you can take these frames back out, and you can push the brood back around. Now, what I would recommend doing is take a frame of food and sealed brood and try to put it towards the outside, right? Put one more next to it. So you got 2 together. I never split any, I always have at least 2 together. That way they can stay warm. Especially if you've got multiple boxes on above it and the nights are still getting cold. You can really chill your brood if you split them up too much, and you can kill them off. These are capped brood. They still need to have other body heat around them to stay warm. And if they're not up above, they're not getting the heat from the bees from down below raising up, right? A little thermodynamics there. Spell that. And do the same thing where you only keep, a frame in between them, and the same thing where you put it back in between 2 or 3 frames, right? Now it's sealed brood, and there should be a lot of room on these other frames that are in here. Hopefully, that's what you're taking out of here. Is you're taking out the stuff that potentially has been emptied out, right? Hopefully, they aren't storing a bunch of nectar and other stuff in here. If they're storing a bunch of nectar in there and you don't have room, what do? You got to spin. Right? If you don't have room and you don't have drawn comb anywhere else and you're trying to prevent these from swarming and your goal is to give the queen space to lay, you can do a spin. Or you can leave it out. Now, I don't recommend, I was told this early on, so I'm going to tell you bad information, but remember, it's bad information. Don't do it. I had a beekeeper tell me, just leave the stuff out, the bees will clean it up. They do. They clean it up really good. They tear it up. They tear it up. And so it really, you get wax everywhere. You can see it all over the place. It's not as neat as if you were to put extracted comb, extracted honeycomb on top of a colony and have them clean it out for you. And they'll clean it dry, and they'll still keep all the comb intact. They'll tear all sorts of stuff up. I just don't like it. It makes an awful mess, and then there's a mess of bees around. And in California, we're not supposed to do what's called open feeding. So because of that, it's also technically a big no-no. I don't know if it's what kind of no-no that is, what level of severity that is. I'm sure there's a fine involved. With California, there's always a fine involved. Okay, so now you've got them kind of recombined, and what it should look like is, something like this, right? Where you've got empty open frames in between either capped brood or brood that's been open, a couple open, and whatever you have left over, right? And that's your recombine effectively. Now, if you wanted to give them more space, sure, you could do 2, 2, and 2, right? You could make it super even. Taking out one of the blues, we'll put it back up here up top, and now we've got our 2 2s together again. That's really the right way to do it, right? With it in summertime or getting to the warmer days, if you know you're going to have some warm days and warm nights, there are times when I cheat and I'll do a 1 frame, but if you want to be completely successful and not lose that brood potentially, this is the best way to do it. And then you could put everything back together. If you want to have a single box, these will hatch out, they'll go through the excluder, and again, you'll have these empty open frames. Once these are hatched out, right, now you can do some other manipulations with them, because now these are no longer blue, right, these are empty. Now you can put them back down below and do a similar process. So you're kind of doing a little bit of a swap around, looking for how you're going to manipulate the space for the queen to lay in, right? Okay. The other thing you can do, Tony and I were talking about this before. You're going to be my new best friend, sorry. We were talking about before is you can take, if you've got a bunch of stuff going on down here, you can take your frames and you can split them out into a 5-frame nuke. And that works out really nice if you've got a nuke that you've got from, like, say, purchasing your bees. You can also make a 5-frame nuke pretty cheap if you're into woodworking. It's not hard to do. If you know how to make a box square, you can do it. But not everybody wants to do that. You can buy cardboard nukes. I don't recommend them for long-term use. Excuse me. I'll be okay. The bees get me choked up. But yeah, so the idea is, how do you manipulate the frames in a way that they'll hatch out? You'll be able to reclaim that space in your drawn comb. A nuke is a walk-away split is what it's called. I love walk-away splits. I love them. They're great. They're super easy. Take a couple of frames of brood, right? Take a frame of food, or 2 if you have them, and then take an empty and put an empty in there in a 5-frame nuke, and you just drop them into your nuke and you walk away. Now, I always add a little pollen patty, like a half a pollen patty, and I add some sugar water if I've got it available. This last cycle, I did 25% growth in 1 yard, and I made, well, it doesn't matter, but I made a bunch of colonies. And when I did the walkway split, all of them took except for 1. So, which ended up being, sadly, at 10% or something like that. So anyway, yeah, so the 1 colony didn't take everything, and all the other ones did, and so it was super easy. Now, if you have queen cells, let's say you've waited too long, all of a sudden you get in your colony, I've got queen cells. If you've got your queen and you know where she's at because you have a 10-frame excluder on top, I'm not going to stop selling that, and you know she's down here, it's easy to go through and say, oh, that one's got a queen cell. If she's marked, it's really easy to find her. And you can say, oh, she's not on there. I put that in a 5-frame nuke or in another box, something I've got set aside just to work with, right? And then I go through the next one. Do I have queen cells? I've got a couple of queen cells. I'm going to put them over here. And I work through the entire box that way, and I try to find my queen. Sometimes she'll be on the wall or the floor, or I've found her on lids before. And I'm like, what are you doing up here, you goofball? You know, she's got a wild gene to her. So anyway, the thing is like, once you find her, now you know where she's at. So if I find her on a frame, I'm looking at it, I will pull the frames over in such a way that I've got space, and I'll put it over here. Now she's not going to cross this space most likely, unless she crawls down a wall and goes on the floor and comes up and over. But that's it's pretty small chance that that's going to happen. So now I know I've got the ability to do a 5-frame split walk away or any other manipulation. But finding your queen is key. If you don't have a marked queen and you don't have a good eye for it, I highly recommend, if you're not on Reddit, get on Reddit. There's a subreddit that is queen spotting. And I love that thing. I'll just do that like when I'm bored. And it's good practice. So anyway, you know, if you don't know how to spot a queen, do something to kind of help you get used to it, you know. They are bigger and fatter. And I tell you what, every new person that I bring out to a new training yard will say, is that the queen? No, it's a drone. Is that the queen? No, it's a drone. And so you get used to seeing what you need to see after doing it for a little while. Anyway, so the queen's down here. We know that we want to do a 5-frame split. We've got 4 of our frames already ready. Now we just need to grab an empty from somewhere and put it in that nuke, right? We walk away, give them a little food, and pretty soon, before you know it, they've got a new queen set up. If they've got capped cells, let's say they're capped and it's day 8 for them, in about 2 weeks, they're going to hatch and have done their mating flight, and they'll be back and they'll be laying, right? So it depends on plus or minus a couple of days, right?
You know what? I forgot to ask you how you wanted questions.
Oh yeah, anytime. Just
Okay.
interrupt.
All right. So how long do you wait?
I wasn't ready for that. Well,
Okay. When is waiting long enough? Because I think a lot of beekeepers are fearful of that dreaded lane worker, you know, situation. And how do they avoid that? And
So the question is, how long do you wait to know if you've got a good laying queen?
well, if they've created their own queen themselves, like you've given them plenty of time.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a walkaway split or nuke or whatever it is, you haven't put the queen in there, but you have the right B math, the right larva age, right?
Yeah.
For them to be able to create their own queen, hopefully.
Yeah.
How long do you really want to give them? Like, what's the longest you'd want to wait?
If it's starting from an egg or a larva, I would want to wait at least 28 days.
28 days. Okay, good deal.
28 days from an
Thank
egg, as long as you see the egg. Once you see a sealed queen cell, it's about 3 weeks, 21 days-ish, right? Give or take a few days. If you're a little bit longer on that and you don't have a rush, doesn't matter, right? None of us are really, I mean, I'm not in here doing queen production for sales for anybody else. I do it for myself, right? I want to have queens available. I want to make sure I have spares. I like doing it. I was an awful angler. I'm okay at apiary stuff and beekeeping, right? But this is my hobby. This is what I enjoy doing. And as a sideline business, I also enjoy making honey and making my bees grow or helping other people get bees. So that's kind of my approach, which is a little bit different than a commercial beekeeper. And I think a lot of folks in the clubs have something similar, right? Where you're looking at, how do I just have some bees, make some honey, and go from there, right? Maybe you give some away for Christmas or other presents. But the idea is for the queen rearing and all that stuff, wait about 3 weeks after a capped queen cell. If they're not capped, it's more like 4. It's 28 days typically.
Yeah. Okay. So this kind of maybe oversimplifying, but
Yeah.
so you keep the queen excluder between these 2 brood boxes basically
Correct.
all the time.
Correct.
So the way I understand this, then you're using the bottom box for eggs,
Mm-hmm.
but the rearing of the brood in the box above that. So you've got space for her all the time, but always in the bottom box. You don't, where it seemed like in the old days, you'd expect her to move up and down between those boxes.
Right,
And you're
right.
controlling
I
her.
try to confine my queen, you
Yes,
know.
yeah.
So yeah, I do. I like to have her in the 10 frames down below, and it does mean that I have to do a few more manipulations. But the manipulations save me a ton of time in the long run because you know, I don't have to go through 20 frames every time I need to find her. And you know, typically you don't need to go through all 20 frames to see if you've got a good queen. You can do a crack method, the clamshell method that I showed you earlier. You can look underneath and you can see the brood. You can see where they're at and how many frames of brood they have. You can see where the bees are condensing from underneath or up above. When you first open the top up, you can see where they're at. and what frames they've bubbled up to the top of, and you can say, aha, I know that's 4 frames right there, or 5 or 6 or whatever that number is. The bees are on those. Most likely there's brood on those. And, you know, check it out. A couple frames. Typically the middle ones, if you're managing your frames this way, the middle ones will have more. But they can be anywhere the bees are at. But I like to confine the queen because I don't like to go through 1,000 frames. You know, if I can go through 500 instead of 1,000, that's better. And it's not necessarily that I'm changing the brood dynamic so much from a 2-box setup when I'm trying to prevent swarming. And that's what we're talking about, is preventing swarming. Giving her space to lay and allowing her the time to do it with the frames that she has available to her. But I'm still using the top. They're still got brood up above and they have brood down below. And they're raising them in both areas.
Have you ever had to run into an issue with backfilling? So then that creates an issue with her having space to lay?
Yes, yes, yes. Actually, so I just did a damarie, which I was going to show in a minute. No, go for it. We said we were going to team up. Go for it. Yeah.
So that's when there's often a honey flow, and you're finding that the bees are then filling every available space basically with nectar instead of, and it creates a tricky situation because it's in cells. Like normally you would go in and you'd find the feed frames on either side of the box, but sometimes the honey flow is so strong that literally they'll start filling in any available space, like even the ones that would normally be reserved for brood. And then the queen's like, "Hey, ladies, where am I supposed to go now?" What would you add? What would you add to that?
No, that's perfect.
that?
So when the nectar flow is strong and when the pollen's coming in too, they'll plug it up no matter what you do sometimes. And so there's a couple of things you can do. You can find other frames that you have laying around because you're a crazy bee person. You have a bunch of equipment. If you don't have that, then you have to extract. You have to make a decision. Do I make space for them, and how can I make space for the queen to lay in, right? And one way to do that is to do an early extraction. Now, the honey may not be ready for consumption or for long preservation. So you might get a few pounds of honey out of the stuff that you will have to decide what you're going to do with pretty quickly. Do you want to use it in some food that you're cooking? Maybe you want to make some honey chicken. Honey garlic chicken is fantastic. The water content might be too high, and so that's what I'm kind of getting at. If the water content is above 18-20%, you don't want to use it or store it for too long because it has a tendency to ferment. And if it ferments, it makes something else that's delicious, but you know, not everybody wants that, right? So, you know, then you need to figure out what you're going to do with that. Okay, so is that good? Did I answer the question? Yeah. Okay. The other thing I'll do is if I see that a strong honey flow is coming in, they're starting to fill up, I will add honey supers on. I'll talk about that here in a minute. We've got tons of time, so we're good. But first, let me talk about how I like to do what I'm calling a modified damarie method for various reasons. There's a method called the damarie method, which allows you to take frames like I'm talking about and split them up and make more queens. I've done this. It works great. I'll explain how you do it first. So first, you've got your brood. You've separated a couple, 2, 3 frames of brood up into this box here. Then you add a honey super is what I like to add, especially if the honey flow is on, right? Now the bees have to come up in here to get to this brood. If you've got drawn comb, which is pretty much all I have now these days, this stuff's all stuck together.
Oh.
Trust me, it's drawn comb. There we go. From below. Death from below. So there we go. Yeah, my knife's in the car too. That's the worst part about it. I got nothing. I got nothing. So yeah, drawn comb. Now, what I'd like to show you is this is one that I made a mistake on right early on. This drawn comb is different than what I like. This is the best kind of drawn comb. The best kind of drawn comb is light in color. It's not dark. Dark drawn comb like this, the top one, means that they laid brood in there. And the brood stuff, especially if there's any kind of any kind of bee bread or any other pollen still left in there, I find is really attractant to wax moths. So I prefer to clean these out, and this will probably be the last year for that one. I have found out how to deal with wax moths, but that's for a separate discussion. Okay, so I will put drawn honeycomb in here. The bees have cleaned up before. It smells like honey. They know how to use it. Everything's good. Oh, Lordy. There we go. Sorry, everybody online that had to hear that. And then I will put on another excluder, because once you separate your brood frames like this up above, there is a chance that you could create a queen, right? And if you create a queen, I really don't want them fighting it out. I really don't want them figuring out that they can move around freely. So I like the other queen excluder on for this specific purpose. So I'll put this back on, and it's going to be super tall now. Now within 7 to 10 days, I'll come back and I'll see if I have any sealed queen cells. If I've got sealed queen cells and I want to make more colonies, I'll take out the frame with the sealed queen cells and I'll put them in a 5-frame split, or I'll take this off entirely and I'll walk away with this, and this will become a new colony. It'll get a new bottom board, it'll get a new top, right? And it'll be off on its own, and these bees will be fine. Now, 2 frames is really not enough to really get them going super strong with this kind of space. So I use a 5-frame nuke just to get them going. But I have a 5-frame nuke available, really good this time of year. A month ago, a few weeks ago, it wouldn't work out so well because the nights get too cold. And there's just a lot of space in here for them, especially if you're up at elevation. We're at 1,500 feet. It was still getting cold a month ago. Pretty chilly. Okay. Any questions about that process?
Cold. What temperature are you talking about, Keith?
So it depends on how many bees you have in your colony.
There we
But so if it's only 2 frames of bees, and there's nurse bees on those 2 frames, I would say anything in the nighttime temperature below 35 in the freezing range is in a 10-frame box is kind of risking it. If in a 5-frame, they can keep that space warm. The closer you get to freezing and below, if you happen to be unlucky enough to drop down below, their success rate goes down. Okay, what else? Okay, now we've done a split with this colony, and now this colony has, because you did your manipulation of your frames, they have space down below that she's been laying in for the last 2 weeks, right? And they've got space above. So now they're like, okay, I've got all this comb to put honey in, and so they'll come up here and they'll put their food resources up here. That's really the ideal method, right, in my opinion. I did do this once. Okay, so learn from my mistakes. I've made a few of them. I've tried a lot of different things. So I did do this once where I had this set up like so, and this one has the hole on the top, right? And I had forgotten to plug it up. And so what did they do? They made this a whole new entrance. And just because of timing and circumstances, my mistake was they made a queen. And they were just happy enough to come and go out of that entrance all day long. And this one, they were happy to come and go out of this entrance all day long. And they were working fine. I made a lot of honey out of that colony, 2 colonies, right? 2 queens, lots of stuff going on. Oh, it was super strong. I made so much honey. But as soon as I took this off, all those bees that were coming in that entrance right here were now right here in my face. And I wanted to get down here to see what this queen was doing. So now what do I do? Well, now I use smoke, right? So I would take the stuff off and I would get down and below here, but I'd have bees all around me. So I don't recommend having 2 separate colonies with 2 different entrances on the same stack. Just for that reason. It was just such a pain. It worked though. It worked like a charm. Okay, so now we've got the setup. If I do find that I want to keep them, I don't have any other hardware and I don't have anything else that I can do with this stuff, all I want to do is have them empty this out as much as possible. Once this all hatches out, brood frames, I'll put them back down below if I have to, right? If I don't have to, I'm not doing it. I'll take this off and I'll store it somewhere else, or use the hardware in another colony if I have to. Hopefully there's room up here still. This last week, I discovered one of the colonies I had set up like this had also filled this up with food. So they're just on a really strong nectar flow in the Salmon Falls, over by Salmon Falls Bridge, if you guys know where that's at. So they were just ready to go, and I didn't realize it was that far along. So I took it off. Oh God. Carried, I don't know, what is it, like 80 pounds or something all the way back. Ugh. Yeah. But yeah, it'll happen. So what do? I've got a box like this at home that is going to be extracted. Honey. And it's beautiful. It's got white caps, it's brand new stuff. So yeah, yeah. Now I do feed in the wintertime. I do feed in summertime, different times of feeding, and I'll feed sugar water. If you ever have frames of sugar water, I will never extract that stuff. I just give it to the bees. It's garbage. It's not honey. So I do this technique because I like to keep the sugar water or potential for sugar water honey down below in just the brood chamber. Whenever I have a honey super on, I'm not putting food on because it should be during a honey flow when the honey super's on, right? When these come off, there's no more honey flow. The resources are dwindling. This is capped. It's ready to go. And now I can start feeding again and making sure I don't plug out this brood box. So again, just another reason to kind of use excluders, because the honey, even if you make this mistake, it still stays honey. And it's a mess if you try to extract with brood. I'm getting off on a tangent, I'm sorry. But if you try to extract with brood in your honey frame that you're trying to you've decapped, and there's larva goo everywhere, and now you've got to pull that through a strainer, and it's larva goo. Anybody had larva goo on you? So if you go to like remove on the bottom of these frames, they'll get like drones on there, and you'll scrape it off. And then it squirts all that white milky goo out. Yeah. Who knew you could milk bees? We knew we could milk oats and we could milk almonds. Who knew we could milk bees? Yeah. It's in the colony, right? But it makes a mess. And then I feel like that's a contamination of my goo in there. I don't want that, right? So the only way to keep it separate, queen excluder. Okay. Any questions?
But this is the modification that you run.
Right, right.
You
Yeah.
wanna run a double screen?
I don't do double screens now. There's too much hardware. I already have too much hardware. Yeah, yeah. I can do it with excluders doing the same thing. Double screens are really good for, huh?
Yeah,
Oh, that's not mine. Yeah. Go ahead.
last year I decided when I did my splits, I decided to do the Bob Binney method. And I basically created a plastic bin with a rim, and that was my funnel. And I shook all the bees down, right? So I took three boxes, shook them all down, put a queen excluder between the two boxes, and then waited a day or two. They equalize because then all the bees kind of move their way up, but then I know that the queen is in that bottom box. And then what I did is because I was buying myself time, that was the idea. So then in the meantime, then I got some queen cells. And so when I knew again that the queen was in the bottom, because I shook all the bees down into the bottom box and put the queen excluder on, I then, when I added my queen cell to the top box, I used the double screen board. And the double screen boards are kind of cool because most of them have a way to make it. But the bees benefited from, that's the Bob Binney one, and then the other one's just like the one we got from Hilco. And so you can see how different versions there are. But the whole point was that then that gave the brood on the top got the benefit of the warmth from the bottom. But then I had to watch it because now each colony only had one box, right? So I had to be ready to split. So when I split them, all I did was take the top box off, and they were usually at a point where I could add now a second box. So I basically doubled my colonies.
Yeah.
So it worked really well. The only caveat is it's all about the timing, the timing of when the queen cells are available or the mated queens, and timing of, what's going on with the weather and the forage.
That goes back to bee math.
Yes, it all goes back to bee math. That beekeeping would be all about math.
On that presentation that I have, it has Michael Bush's bee math page, and I use that all the time. Yeah.
That's how I use the double screen boards. They're super handy though. What I find them is that if I have a smaller colony in the fall and I don't want to combine it with another one, I think they might make it through. It is super easy to pop that double screen board on top of a strong colony and then put the weaker colony on top if I want to try and keep both of them. So they're handy for that as well. But the fact is you end up with a ton of beekeeping equipment. And I just went through all mine to figure out what I needed and what I didn't. So that's why I would love for everybody to let us know if you'd like to do a swap meet for one of our meetings, maybe in July, where everybody just loads up their truck with everything that they just don't need anymore. And we'll be here on our meeting night, pull up in the parking lot, put down the tailgate, and we'll do a bee swap or a bee sale. So if you're keen on that, let us know, because we would kind of like to try it. We were just worried if July was going to be too hot. But you end up with stuff, especially if you start switching between 10 frame boxes and 8 frame boxes and all of that thing. And that's the other thing too, is that your bee math changes when you have 8 frame boxes, right? You can't think of it in the same, it doesn't change. It's just the numbers change. You have to tweak it.
The bee math changes for sure.
Yeah.
You got to do the numbers game. I do like the idea of double screen boards, and I have a couple of them that I've inherited from people that have kind of come and gone and given me some of their equipment. And the only time that I use them, I have exactly two, is when, like you said, I'm overwintering a small 5-frame nuke. And I want them to be able to get the heat from above or from below up above, and it'll keep them through the winter a lot better than trying to keep that 5-frame nuke by itself. 5-frame nuke is just a pain in the butt to try to get through winter sometimes, especially if it's a cold winter, super rainy, and if you're at elevation. So I don't recommend it. Take the easy way. These are super easy to make too. He uses the same Bob Benny. It's a 71 millimeter cut here for this. I don't know why I can remember some numbers and others I can't. And this is a number 5 heart, or number 8. That's the smaller one of the two, which the bees can't get through, right? Because you want to not let the queens interact. Oh yeah. So the entrance, only one entrance, right, to reduce the amount of airflow, because you're really trying to keep this one warm, right? And so your colony would be up here. The entrance for that colony is here. Yeah. This is side 2. It's gonna be in my way. So let's see. So now we've got a way to combine. We've got a way to potentially expand. The real Damery method is kind of something similar, but they're using a 2 deep solution from all the presentations that I've seen. There's a great book called Increase Essentials, and it goes over this really extensively. There's a Texas set-off, I think is what it's called. I always want to call it Texas standoff. It's a set-off. It's basically a modified Damery method that works really well. I've used that in the past, but you have to have 2 deeps. And now, because I'm 50, things have changed a little bit, and I just prefer not to lift as much if I don't have to, right? So this is one way to kind of get around some of that lifting if you only have one deep that you're dealing with for your brood chamber. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions?
I know. I feel like we should quiz them. We should move his frames around in a box, and then say, "Okay, what do you do?" You want to do it?
Yeah.
Side. So I'm trying to work towards switching all my foundation in my brood boxes to black plastic. Today, we pulled a frame today, and being able to see those 3-day-old, huge difference.
Right.
And that's why I'm looking at yours. Do you use any black? Because you said you're 50 now, and your eyes are, they're not what they used to be.
So I have a mix. I prefer the black, right? These were on sale last year, And so I got like 500 of them because they were on sale last year. I haven't really done a whole lot with plastic. I've only messed with them for the last couple of years. I actually got to tell you, I kind of like the plastic for a lot of reasons. There's a couple of reasons why I don't like it, but plastic doesn't stick together very well, right? So it's easy to pull them apart, and they seem to want to settle in closer together, so I get less bee goo in between them, right? The propolis is really kind of a pain to peel apart, especially as the weather gets a little bit colder. So I do like it for that. Also, the edges are always really square, and they're always going to stay very square, right? Which is nice because it's always going to fit about the same. The only thing I have to worry about, I think long term, would be two issues. I use my Hive tool to pop open the frames and kind of lift these out and get them in a space where I can manipulate them with my hands, right? Doing that over time with plastic that's been tempered with heat and time potentially, I would think that this plastic would wear out over time.
I've broken up like that, but I don't go in like this. I come from the side with it.
Like right here?
Well, I don't ever scoop. I always start from that side and I put my Hive tool in like this and then I break them.
Oh,
Push
gotcha.
them all across.
Yeah, yeah.
And when they're real propolis,
Kind of do this number.
I've broken the plastic.
Okay. Yeah. So
when
you
they're
have
really when they're real propolisy.
yeah. Okay.
The
Good
other
to know.
downside is we've had, I'm sorry, hive beetles.
Mhm.
So I don't get lots of them, but when you get hive beetles, they hide in those little shallow
These right
all
here.
the way around. And I've started with plastic. I'm switching back to wood
Okay.
because I don't have hundreds of ones during the season. I may find 5, 6, 8 beetles in a hive, but that freaks me out. And they're always hiding in those slots. So a
Yeah.
hive tool fits right in there, but it takes 5 minutes of going in and trying to squish,
It's not
and the
worth it,
bees
yeah.
can't get them out. So
Yeah.
we're
But-
switching back to wood right now, I think.
Okay. Well, let me know if you want plastic. Apparently, I'm going to have a fire sale on it.
I've actually, two of our hives create a lot of propolis. And in the last 2 weeks, I've actually pulled apart deep frames with the J hook rather than scooting them and breaking them, apart. I used the J hook to try and pry them up. Off popped the top of the frame, and then you got a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. There is definitely badly assembled frames. And then was that a wood frame or a plastic?
Wood frame.
So yeah, so badly assembled frames, tangent. I love rabbit holes. So I assemble all my frames now because I got tired of dealing with all the garbage that I got from other people. Type, what was it? Type Bond number 2 works really good. It's an outdoor, or 3 works really good. It's an outdoor wood glue that settles in at lower temperatures, so I can work in the garage in winter time, right? And then a nice nail or now I'm not going to remember the name of it. There's a U one now. I can't think. A small crown staple. Thank you. Works great. But I prefer the crown staples now too. I just got another gun for that. Yeah, so making sure that you assemble with wood glue and that you hold them together somehow with some sort of fixture. If you don't have the ability to use a nail gun or some sort of implement like that, then a hammer and nail would even work. But nail gun just kind of seals the deal pretty quickly. Let's see, what else? So now we talked about the splits, we talked about the merge. Does anybody have any other brood type questions related to how the bees raise their brood?
How do you count the brood?
Oh,
You always,
yeah.
I know, it should be on my- So everybody, you always hear people say, oh, I have 4 frames of brood, 10 frames of brood. How do you actually measure the brood?
Yeah, even worse than that is how do you name them all? You know?
Right. And do you count just capped brood, or do you count larvae, or what are, and I know what I'm looking for when I go into a hive, but
What do I do? Yeah.
what do you do?
So I do a couple of things. One is I'll look in the colony to see where the bees are bubbling up. And then that's where I know where the brood chamber is effectively, is where those bees are working, is where I see the bees come up when I first open it up. Or when I clamshell it and I look from below, I can see not only where they're at, but if I add a couple of puffs of smoke, they'll move out of the way. That's why I love smoke. Smoke there's a reason for it. It moves the bees, right? It also, it masks their alarm pheromone. So, they have a less tendency to kind of be stingy, right? And if you do it before you enter the hive, they'll kind of also start consuming some of their resources and it makes them fat and happy, so they're less likely to sting, right? Think Thanksgiving, right? And Thanksgiving, you don't want to get in a fight after a big meal. So, so then I'll smoke them and they'll move out of the way, and then I'll be able to see in between the frames. And if I look in between the frames, let's see, where's the camera? If I look in between the frames from below, I can see in this gap, what does it look like here and here? Now I can see 2 frames, right? And if I just kind of move them aside a little bit, I don't even have to move them typically. I don't even have to move them typically. I just look underneath and I'm looking in between the frames to see what does it look like. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And that's my quick inspection, right? If I've got, a big yard, which none of my yards are huge just yet. But I've got 2 yards that are going to be growing here soon. So as they grow, you got to kind of learn for those hacks. And a lot of times I'll just go out at lunch and I'll want to look at my colonies really quickly. And I've got, 10 colonies at home. Doing that quickly is you got to learn a couple of tricks. That's kind of what I'll look for. And then, on the day that I've got a lot of time, on a Saturday or whatever, I'll go through, I'll pull a frame out, make some space. That's the best way to do it, especially for first years. And then I'll look through real quick. I'll just pop open a frame, look at it real quick. I'll work towards the middle usually and see where my frames are at. And as I'm working towards the middle, I'm moving these frames over to the side. And as I move them over to the side, I can see, looking down at them, what's going on really quickly. If they're covered in bees, that's usually a good sign. That's usually a sign that they're either filling it with nectar, which you can see with just a quick glance, pop it back in. And once you get to the brood frame, you don't only need to find the outer, in a quick inspection, you only need to find the outer brood frame. And then you look in and you go, okay, where's the outer brood frame from here? Scoot everything over. It's not that one. Oh, it's that one. Okay. Now you can say, well, based on those 2, oh my goodness, now I'm not going to be able to pop this back right. Based on those 2 frames, I know I've got 5 frames right here. You don't need to inspect all 5 frames. So just little quick hacks. Oh, and last thing.
Oh, yeah.
The second half of that, I almost forgot. What do I count as brood? So if I look at a frame and I see eggs, larva, that's brood. If it's capped, it's brood. Everything, whole life stage. If it's coming out, it's not really brood.
So I always get asked this a lot. So if you have one frame and both sides are covered with bees or both sides are covered with brood, is that one frame?
That's one frame.
It's one
Yeah.
frame.
Yeah.
That's the key. So
Yeah. And one frame of brood like that equals, I think, 2.5 frames, depending on how full it is, right? If it's edge to edge, it's like 3 frames of bees when it all hatches out. So
who has been in their hives lately? Oh, yay. Oh, I'm so glad. Okay, so I'd love for someone to talk about what they saw. So who would like to? I'd like to pass on. Here, pass this to Ed. All right, there you go. He's a nice teacher. Here it comes.
Okay, so we haven't paid enough attention over the winter. So I ran with both my hives. We run 8 frames,
Mhm.
and I've got double deeps. So when we got into them the other day, they are flat loaded with bees.
nice.
And so I've never done
Mazel
split.
tov.
But I've never done splits, and I'm not sure at this point. It's like how fast I need to move and what do I need to do?
Yeah. So 2 deeps full of frames of bees.
Yes.
Yeah, it's time to do either a split or a damarie and move that brood frame around, give them space. Brood nest around. I mean, you're splitting the brood nest up in a way that gives them the idea that they're not super over populated.
So in order to do that, though, I'd have to add yet another deep.
No, you can add a shallow with 2 excluders.
Okay, because I do have supers on them, but with the queen excluder in there.
Okay.
Would you the queen excluder and just let them move up, or what would you do?
Do you have 2 deeps and then a queen excluder?
Yes.
For me, I would take the 1 deep off, put it aside, and put the queen excluder down below on the 1 deep. So you only have 10 frames isolated, I would find the queen, make sure she's down here. If you can't find her, shake the bees from here into this box, then add the queen excluder. And the queen will be down here if you did your job right for the other box. That was the top box. However, the one caveat to that is if they've moved up from the wintertime into their food stores up here and all of the brood is in the top box and the bottom box is empty, that's when you do a switch. I'll take the empty box, put that aside, take the full box, which was the top box, and make that the bottom box. Then I'll look for the queen in the empty box, the lighter one. And all you have to do to figure out which one's what is just do that number, right? Just want to do a lift check, see what the weight's like.
So if you're taking that top box and moving it aside,
Uh-huh.
okay, and I'm not sure, so I'm still not sure if I've got my queen in this box or that box, right?
Right.
So the box, so if I shake them down, then I've got this other box that still has all kinds of brood.
Right.
Right.
And then you put the queen excluder on,
Okay.
and then you put the brood back on top, like it was before, right?
Okay.
Nurse bees will come up and they'll tend to that brood. And now you know your queen's down here, the nurse bees are here. Now you have a choice. If you looked at the box down below and it had brood down here and you've got brood up here, you can just do a split that way. Or you can do this method where you introduce a honey super in between, and then you add the top box back on top, right? And now you're effectively splitting up the brood, giving them enough space that they'll most likely create queen cells in the top as well,
Right.
especially if there's eggs and larvae. You have a choice. Do you call those queens, or do you let them hatch out and put them into a 5-frame nuke or some other setup? But that's how I would do it. I would just manage it to where, you know, I've got 1 deep, not 2. But if you want to manage 2 deeps, I would probably, because like I had to do this with most of my colonies. The bottom one was light, the top one was heavy, full of brood and everything else. Swap them out, swap frames from the empty one, just like I showed you before, right? And now you've got empty frames in what was the top heavy box, in the bottom box. She's got room to lay. Her swarming tendency has been greatly reduced, and then put it on top.
And if I do a split, and this is where I don't understand, is there a certain distance you got to move them away so they don't want to go back to the same?
Oh,
same
yeah,
colony?
thank you for asking that question.
'Cause
What's your
I don't-
name?
I don't know, Ed.
Ed,
Yeah.
that's right. Thank you, Mr. Ed. Sorry, I got to remember it somehow. Yeah, you're Mr. Bill. So it's not an uncommon theme. I apologize. It's just something I got to do. Yeah, thanks for asking the question. What was the question again?
Moving split.
Moving
it's on
splits.
moving
Okay,
splits.
so you can move them right next to each other. The thing is you got to remember that if you do it too soon, if you haven't allowed the bees to equalize, for the nurse bees to come up into that, however you set it up, to come through the queen excluder and tend to the brood next box, if you just move the box over, no bees will exist in there after a while, or a very light load will exist that have remained on whatever frames you left behind, right?
Okay.
Because the foragers will fly back. Nurse bees, they stay behind. So now you've effectively emptied out the box, and it'll just get robbed out.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Makes sense.
So
Hours to wait.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll see it. I mean, it's kind of cool if you could peek in there like an hour or two. And it depends on temperature. It depends on a few other factors, how much population you really have. It takes in how big of a space did you add? Did you just add them over a queen excluder after you did your manipulation? If you don't have this, it'll be a shorter time period, right? Less space to move in, less stuff to figure out. And so, yeah, it just depends on the circumstances of the timing. But it's worth checking. And definitely after 3-4 hours, they've equalized. Now you can do your walk away effectively, and any foragers that were in that box will fly back home.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you find they're really light later on, you don't like the way that they look the next day, always take a frame out from your mother hive, mother to daughter, right? Shake them out, and the nurse bees will stay behind, and again, the foragers will come back. You don't want to do too much, so much that you depopulate this colony. I would say 2 to 3 frames, depending on how much population you have in here and how much frames of brood and population you have behind here. It's kind of a judgment call.
Does it also work if you move both boxes? So that you know, if they go back where it was, it's not there. Just,
Yeah, if you move both boxes, the foragers are going to try to return to their original site of origin, right? And so they'll go back over here and they'll be like, there's nothing here for me. And they'll go to the next available box in the line, right? And so foragers will trickle down and try to figure out where they're supposed to go. So you can depopulate both colonies if you just move them, 6 feet over this way, right? So the rule of thumb is 3 feet. So if you move them more than 3 feet, they'll tend to lose their orientation to that box. So just something to watch out for. That answer your question? Thanks.
Judy? Well, and so sometimes what I'll consider is what type of brood is available in each box. So if there's a lot of cap brood, I know that within days there's going to be a ton of new bees. Whereas if it's just, young larvae, they still have some time to go before they're going to have foragers, right? Knowing what their jobs are and that timing and that bee math. I know how many days I have. So I'll try to accommodate for the foragers sometimes, where if I do a split like that between the two boxes, the one that I'm moving away from the original position, I might make sure it has an extra frame of capped brood, knowing that that's going to hatch, very, very quickly, very soon. But it's a balancing act. That's the magic of,
And that's why it's also important to know when to feed and when not to feed.
Yes.
If you're doing a
yes.
walk-away split like that, now all your foragers are gone. Well, what does that mean? It means that the walk-away split has no foragers. So if they don't have just a ton of food available to them right then and there, they're going to starve to death, right? So you need to give them food at that point in time when you do a walk-away split too. And you can do a simple pollen patty, but I prefer the pollen patty like nectar combo for a good walk-away. You can give them frames of honey. Yeah, yeah. If you don't have frames of honey and you only have, empty comb, that's when you want to definitely feed them. For a 5-frame walkaway split, I kind of put this in my presentation before, but you want to do, it's fine, yeah. You want to do a couple of frames of brood, at least. I like to have one that's completely capped, if possible, or as much capped as possible. One that's got eggs and larvae on it. And then I want to do a full frame of food for number 3. Or maybe number 4, 2 frames of food, and 1 empty for the 5th one. So you can switch it up to where you have 3 frames of brood and 1 frame of food, but you still want to add food into them later on. Mosquito. Yeah.
All right. Do we want to do one more? Does one more person want to share what they saw on their? Yeah. Here we go.
So talking about mistakes, I've made way more than my share over the last 3 years because I'm into my bees in the last couple of years a lot.
Yeah.
My wife is watching at home right now, and you talk about marking queens.
Hi, Mrs. Tony.
Yeah, so that's our next step is, we've got to get our queens marked. Over the last couple of weeks, we've made some queen mistakes by pulling some resources out, and we actually did a split. We found a hive about 10 days ago, and it had 7 capped cells. They had not swarmed yet, absolutely plugged with bees. We split into a 3-way mating nuke. We went through 20 frames and never found the queen. And my wife, we're both gotten pretty good at spotting queens, could not find her. We ended up doing a 3-way split into a mating nuke, with a frame and a half in each one. Gave them a pint of syrup, a little part of a global patty, so they had a little bit in each one. We drove by that hive that we split 6 days later, and there's a pre-swarm going on. After we had already split it, there was 10,000 bees, in the air.
Yeah.
We went back home after we checked our apiary. We went back home, and I said, I'm going to get equipment. I'm going to go split them again. I'm going to go grab some more bees and look for the queen. Went back down there. It was the strangest feeling. I had a friend with me. We had just been there, bees flying all around us. We went back. It was eerie still. And I said, they're gone. They've already left.
Yeah.
It was so quiet.
Start looking in the trees. And
Yeah, that's what we were doing. We were looking in the trees. We popped the lid to the box. It was jam packed. They had all come back in there, went through every frame again, still couldn't find the queen, but found 3 more cells. So I like, okay, you guys, if you want to swarm that bad, you're coming to my house. So
Yeah.
I've removed about 70% of the volume of bees out of this hive.
Yeah.
And right now it is on counting the original 5 possible splits out of this one hive.
Yeah, that's
So-
a booming hive. That's like that's an Italian hive, Tony.
Yeah.
That
Well,
really gets going. No.
I'll tell you what we did today because I'm trying to have a couple hives build for honey. So I've got a deep on the bottom and then I'm going to mediums.
Mhm.
So I've got a deep and a medium, and then last year I ran queen excluders.
Mhm.
What we did today, I'm trying to keep 2 hives as production hives. I'm trying to get honey as, you know, I ended up in one of my deeps, there were 12 dry cups last Monday, 10 days ago.
Mhm.
And we prepared for splitting them. We went back 6 days later. They're exactly the same, dry cups.
Beautiful.
Today we went in and,
They're all full.
well, the boxes are full. So we added another medium.
Yeah.
I moved 2 frames up. I had drawn combs. So there's total of 5 drawn combs. And I put the checkerboarded down below, put the brood back together, and then put in some other frames that I had. But what my plan is, I want to go back in
Well,
a few days.
let's talk about your plan a little bit more later on.
Okay.
Because I don't want to take too much time going
Okay.
over this scenario. But what I think is happening, for everybody's like view of this thing, you know, you've got a population issue, right? And so you've got those frames of brood that are sealed or like ready to be capped. And then all of a sudden, bam, they all hatched about the same time. And you've got a huge population increase that triggers that swarming instinct, right? And the bees know when about this is going to happen, or shortly after it happens, they start to go, okay, that's enough. And then they start grooming the queen for that swarming mechanism. They start making her run around the frames, and they kind of lighten her up, and they stop her from laying. She thins out enough that she can actually fly a little ways. It's kind of like watching me run a little ways these days. But so she'll end up doing her thing, and no matter what you do, at some point in time, that population has gotten too big, and the swarming instinct is too far along, and they're just going to go. I was able, and I have been able to stop swarms in the past by catching them a little bit before where you're talking about. If you're seeing a lot of full frames of brood, you do this method or some other method to relieve the pressure of the brood on the colony, give them space, do some shakes outside of the colony too, that helps. If they're really like late in the game, they've got close to capped or capped queen cells, you can shake them out in front and then take those queen cells out, put them somewhere else. And that will give them the idea that, oh, we swarmed. Now, in your case, they already swarmed, they did their thing in the air and they came back. I've had a colony do that in the past, and no matter what I did, that colony just wanted to keep swarming. And what they were is it was a colony that I caught as a swarm. And that next year, I had 5 swarms out of that one colony, and that colony finally, that last swarm was it. It just didn't, there was not enough bees left behind. They just completely left the area. Now those bees were cool. I liked those bees for that one year that I had them, and then I was glad to be rid of them. And I requeened everything, and I haven't had the problem since. So sometimes just getting a better line of genetics in there, a better queen in there to help raise those bees a little bit better makes a big difference. So if you find you're in a spot where you've got some queens that are just over, and you're doing all the manipulations, you're doing all the work, and it's still not working for you, it might just be she got a weird genetic line.
Well, at our home apiary, the 2 boxes that I'm trying to keep for honey production. So what my thought process is, by moving those frames up, I move the open larva and brood 2 frames up into the 3rd box. I wanted them to move all up, start working that box. Then I was going to come back, shake everything down out of that 3rd box and put my queen excluder in between the 2nd and 3rd, just to get them up and moving into that extra box. I rubbed out 12 cells on the bottom that were dry, except one was wet. It wasn't charged. There was not an egg in it, but one cell. And we do the clamshell method, and then my wife snaps a picture of it, and then we go back and blow up the picture, and we can see into, and we can count the seams of bees so much better, the brood,
Yeah.
you know, so we'll do it. And it's like, okay, Michelle, good, get a picture. So, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, nice.
Mark, go ahead. I just tried to unmute you if you wanted to go.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, let me see if I can start video.
Hey.
We just have a few more minutes.
All right, so let's see if I don't no idea how to switch that around. So I go like this. Can you see that? All right. So, if you can see it at all, I can't tell. Split.
Yeah.
Pretty dark.
So,
We got it. We can see it. We can see
yeah,
it.
that's why I wanted to switch it around, but it won't let me. It's using the junk camera. So, knocked all these down. I've got about probably 65 here. And just making splits. Going through where the queen is, I like to keep the queen, take the queen to the new split and put the queen in where the old one was. That way I have workforce that she can replenish where they're going. And then where all the majority of the bees were is where the new queen will come out in about 4 days, 3-4 days. So
Yeah, it's beautiful.
can you do it this time of year? Yeah, it's pretty much right now. See, a lot of brood buildup in the last week. I think it was like 85 degrees here yesterday. So, or 84. So this time of year, it's booming. And the funny thing is, with all these splits I made, I have exactly the same population. So I know folks are worried about making splits. I don't want that many bees. Well, right now, it's the same population as when I had them all in a stacked box. So later in the year, if I'm worried about their weak hives and I want to make big beefy hives to go through winter, I can slam a ball back into much smaller numbers, but bigger hives.
So, Mark, I got a question for you. How long did it take you to crank through that yard?
A couple hours.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not there. I said, oh, this will take a few minutes.
Yeah.
It did not.
And then you realized the bees had a different plan for you, right?
Yeah. Then
Yeah.
I said, oh, do I just give up now and jump in the car? Yeah. Then I found the link to the meeting. So, oh, now I know what I'm doing.
Good deal. Thank you for showing us that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Mark's on a different scale than I am, for sure. My biggest yard, I have 16 at right now. So, and most of my
good.
colonies are like in between 4 to 8.
4 to
Like, they're
8.
less-
So
less
last
complicated.
call for questions because I know we're getting late. Anybody online have a question or anybody in the room have a question? All right. So so with that, so our next meeting again is May. Anybody remember? Thank you. May 8th, nuke pickup. We won't be able to release nukes until after the meeting, but our guest speaker is going to be Eric Oliver. And we'd love to see you all here. We're probably not going to stream that one. And that's because we really want to get as many people here in person as we can. And people are going to have to pick up their nukes anyway. So we figured that might work. Yeah. I need to ask them. I think they are, but I'm not sure. Yeah. So with that, we want to thank Keith for making the drive all the way down. Thank you so much. I'm going to say bye to our online audience and we're going to do the raffle, I think, next. Does that work? Does that sound good? Okay. All right. Everybody online, thank you so much for attending. There we go.